Hi! So I wanted to start off before jumping into anything by saying that I mainly made this video or this podcast or whatever you want to call it in order to inform college students, like people who are juniors like me or upcoming seniors, those who have just graduated college, who are pretty much just going into the workforce and may not know all of these things off the top of their noggin. And I just wanted to provide some sort of video or place that they can come back to if they ever get into any of these situations and have trouble trying to figure out how to get themselves out. So, the content provided in this project is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. The author of this project is a student, me, not a licensed attorney. Please consult a qualified attorney for legal advice. The author, me, and their institution are not responsible for any actions taken based on the information provided in this project. Viewer discretion is advised. All the information that is being stated in this video can be found in Dynamic Business Law, The Essentials by Nancy Kubasek, the 2025 release. Enjoy! Welcome to Late Night Law. I'm your host, Kiara, and today's podcast is going to be centered around a very, very important topic that a lot of people have been contacting me about, so don't worry. I'm going to get into it in a second. Firstly, I'm Kiara. I'm a college student, I'm a junior, and this is my first time doing this, so if there's anything that I need to do different, please let me know. Anyways, we're going to be talking about a few aspects of the employment and discrimination laws, and I'm kind of going to break it down. So here's how I'm going to break it down. First, I'm going to give you guys a general consensus so we're all on the same topic of we know what's going on to a certain degree before I start getting into the nitty-gritty of it all. Then I'm going to list off a few acts that were introduced along with a few other bullet points. Then I'm going to create an open floor where I actively discuss why these laws are so important, because what's the point in getting information if you don't know how to apply it to real life? And certainly last but not least, I'm going to answer 2 questions, give or take, that I saw in my inbox that are related to this law. So grab your pens, paper, snacks, water, whatever else you need to soak in this knowledge. I'm not very sure, but yeah. Remember, this is a free and open space, and any questions, concerns, or comments are welcome. Now let's get into it. So, to start things off, I'm going to give you guys the rundown. Employment and discrimination laws were created in order to protect employees from unfair treatment, harassment, injuries, discrimination, or any other harmful acts that you can think of from an employer. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's there just to protect employees, and it can also be considered a two-way shield for both the employee and the employer, which I'll get into in a second. What I mean by a two-way shield, it prevents employers from losing extremely valuable workers. Now, that doesn't mean that all workers are invaluable. That's not it at all. It's just a certain skill set that's not common for someone to have or easy to find with certain qualifications that you need for a position. If someone in that position were to leave, it puts the company in a bit of a bind, so it's not really something that they want to go through, so these laws help, and I'll get into that later on. And it also prevents any damage that could happen to the integrity of the company if an employee were to damage the integrity of the company. So like I said, it's a two-way shield for both. Now, a few really important aspects of these laws that I want to cover, I'm going to do it in question and answer format. So, when can you legally be fired or quit? To answer this question, I have to start off by defining what at-will employment is. This is pretty much just employment that was created because employees didn't really have any workplace protection in the 18th and 19th century, to be quite frank. And with that came, if someone wanted to fire you just because, they technically could do it. There's things in place now, of course, to prevent that, but at-will employment still is within that category of you can leave if you want, you can be fired if they want. But this was really applicable in every state in America until about 1959. So now it's more certain things vary state by state. So once again, the question I asked earlier surrounded at will. Now that I've explained it decently, hopefully, you can leave for whatever reason if you were not hired with a contract for a certain amount of time. Meaning, if you were hired in a managerial position and you were supposed to stay there for, let's say, 3 years, you have to stay there for 3 years, legally speaking. Not even just a contract, but you have to, because you have a set amount of time. This, of course, the at-will employment doesn't really apply to those that are in key positions, like I stated earlier. So if you're in a managerial position and you don't like your job, you're probably going to have to work something out. It's not really going to happen overnight to where you can just leave. And this applies to my entrepreneurs out there. So if you are starting your own company or business or whatever it may be, do not try to poach any of your current or former coworkers. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It will start your company or business off on a very bad footing, and you are open and susceptible for a world of legal trouble. Don't do it. If your new operation also is deemed a competition to your current, emphasis on current, workplace, then it's probably in everyone's best priority for you to just leave if you're ready for your business venture, because this can also open you to another portal of bad legal things that can happen. So just don't do it. For my entrepreneurs, just keep this in mind. Now, in terms of being legally fired, an employer can technically still fire you for seemingly no reason, so long as it's not illegal, such as a violation on a state statute, or like discriminations and things of that nature. They cannot fire you because you're black. They cannot fire you because you're a woman. They cannot fire you because you are someone who happens to like the same sex. They cannot do that. So, but this regards at-will employments. What is the basis of discrimination in the workplace, and what helps protect you from it? So, to answer this, once again, what exactly is considered discrimination in the workplace? Some people have been asking me about that, and I'm just going to give a quick rundown once again. These consist of harmful acts that alienate an individual because of things regarding their age, religion, sex, race, disability, marriage, etc., so on and so forth. And federal laws were created in order to protect all these workers from these discriminatory acts. The best protection I can give you and that you can have for yourself is knowledge, because there's not going to be a 1, 2, 3, this is how you do it list once you go into the workforce, and not every single employer is going to tell you how to protect yourself regarding these sorts of acts. So it's best to know. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm here for. And on top of that, I'm going to give of course a few of the acts later down the line, but as of now, I'm just going to give you a few notable ones so that you can kind of have them in the back of your mind. So you have the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967, you have the Equal Pay Act of 1963, and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which was technically amended in 2008, but most people, I say 1990 still, just for convenience sake. So what is an employee's entitlement to privacy? So this one has been kind of heavily debated in recent years, especially due to the vast amount of new technology and more open world technology that has become available over the years. So like I stated earlier, well, not necessarily earlier, but like I kind of stated, you just have to be really, really careful. But as stated in the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968, it was deemed by federal law that employers cannot listen to their employees' cell phone, like private cell phone conversations. And if they were to listen to it, which they already shouldn't be doing, they most definitely cannot tell the information of these private conversations to anyone else. So this doesn't mean you can just be on your phone and, private calls all the time. So it doesn't prevent private calls from ever happening. But if you are on your phone and it's due to something private, and your employer finds out that it's private, they legally cannot listen in on your conversation or tell other people. They can be fined up to $10,000. For any future employers, yeah, don't do it. Also, under the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986, it kind of expanded a little bit, especially because, once again, new technology. So employees' rights were extended to email and cell phones, like mobile devices, instead of like the yeah. Although the monitoring has to be consented properly from the employees, like you have to go through the whole process to consent to this, but there are a few special circumstances when it comes to monitoring, which I'm about to get into, where basically there are certain times where an employer will have to, but they have to check and make sure that like there's no harassment that's going on over the phone, or like pretty much that you're safe as an employee. So but once again, this has to be like, you have to sign something for that, so don't let them use it as an excuse to peer into your private calls. But do know that this is a special circumstance that you technically have to sign forms for, which can be in your work contract. So make sure you take your contract, guys. And last but not least, how can social media affect you in the workplace? I know. Heavily debated. It's 2026. We're like maybe 10 years off from flying cars that we've been saying for the past 60 years. But anyways, there has been more of a push into the digital age, and this has been a question I've actually been wanting to answer ever since I started doing my research for this topic. So many employees actually use social media in quite a few different ways, such as the hiring process and also the firing process. So yeah, they use it to help them decide if they want to employ someone, but they have to do it in a sensitive way. They cannot have any sort of discrimination based off of your social media or presence or accounts or whatever it may be. And if it's anything that's related to your race, sexuality, and things of that nature, they have to pretty much ignore it. They cannot determine if you are eligible for this job to be hired based off of that, or to be fired. So on the opposite side of that, there's also firing, so watch out. But your social media can be used as a forum to get you out the door. They still have to be sensitive, but it comes with a few more conditions, a bit different from hiring. The National Labor Relations Act deemed that if employees wanted to use social media as a way to kind of air their grievances, but not personal, as in it's just them and they're just saying things just out into the air, just about them. But like, if you and your coworkers are having issues at your job and you want to talk to them about it, and you air it on social media about the bad workplace habits or how you guys are treated, your employer can't really retaliate. They can try, but legally they can't really do too much in that regards. But once again, they're not supposed to retaliate because it's supposed to be open ground in social media. But still, be very careful in what you post, because it can determine if you get the job or if you lose the job. Now, I'm going to give an example of this for anyone that might need an example. Let's say you want to become a nurse, and within this nursing job that you are about to have an interview for, let's say a month prior, you posted, "Ugh, I hate people so much, and if I were to be a nurse, wow, I would never check up on them. If they needed me, I would be halfway across the hospital for no reason." You're not going to get the job. I'm just going to let you know. Please be wary of what you post on social media. But just because of that doesn't mean that you should know your employment rights, because they will technically still protect you in this area. Now, earlier I talked about discrimination and what helps to protect you from it. So some of the acts that I listed and a few other ones, I'm going to go into a bit more detail. Starting with the Civil Rights Act, Title 7 of 1964. This act was amended in 1991, but for all other purposes, it still revolves around the protection of employees against religion, race, color, national origin, and sex discrimination. So we're just gonna go with it. It serves as a shield to protect each individual against harassment. So if you're having any sort of, issues regarding someone bothering you because of your religion, this is the act that you need to bring up, because they cannot do that under this act. This act was divided into sections, otherwise known as titles, that include the disparate treatment, which means pretty much intentional. This was intentionally done to you. The disparate impact, which means it was unintentional. And when I say that, I mean unintentional as in they're saying that, oh, everyone's being treated equally, but in reality, there's certain aspects that affect you. Now, these two, the ones I just said, are for protected classes. Those are that are considered protected classes. So that's what these first two apply to. There's sexual harassment, which evolved off of the discrimination on sex, and just many more. But there are also ways in which employers can protect themselves against these claims. This includes the merit defense system, which pretty much just discrimination can be used based off of test scores, but they have to be professionally made and done based off of previous data. They cannot just be, here, A, B, or C. If you pick B, I don't want you here. You can't do that. It's not allowed. And then there's also the seniority system defense. So for this to work, it has to apply to everyone equally. You cannot just have someone, just because they've been there for 20 years or something, doesn't necessarily mean that, they can get the top dog position. No, if someone else qualifies more than them and the other person can't get it because of certain, acts or what they look like or anything of that nature, you can't do that. But under this, it just means you have to follow industry practices. It has to apply to everyone equally, and it has to have no origin in discrimination. No discriminatory purposes. None. Nada. And the last one is the bona fide occupational qualification defense. So it can discriminate on sex, religion, or national origin, but it cannot discriminate on race or color. Only if it is deemed necessary for that specific job, of course. What I mean by this is, say you are a man and you want to apply to a bar to work as a bartender, but the bar is for women only. This is kind of where that will fall under, because they only hire women, so you wouldn't be eligible for that. So next, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act. This federal law makes it so that employers can't discriminate against employees or just people who are trying to apply to the job that may have a disability. This also includes ensuring that there are proper accommodations within reason to individuals who have a known disability. So if you have a disability, make sure you have your paperwork, or just you let management, HR, whoever is in charge of that know that you have this disability. But some of these accommodations, they can't impede on how the employer runs their business, so just be aware of that. To qualify for this act, you actually have to, of course, have a disability, be qualified for the job, like on paper, like your skills, your work history, things of that nature, aside from you having the disability, and you have to have been subject to an unfavorable employment situation because of your disability. So what I mean by that is, say you weren't able to get a job and this impacted your ability to pay your rent. That would be an unfavorable employment situation, but you were only in it because of your disability. So yeah. Now we have the Equal Pay Act of 1963. So federally, employers are not allowed to determine how much an employee is eligible to be paid based off of their gender. Just because I say I'm a woman, if I get hired with a male counterpart who has the same work experience, skills, just whatever as me, he cannot get paid $3 more than me just because he's a man. Under this act, that's not gonna cut it. Sorry, not sorry, but it has to be based off of your skill and effort. So if of course he were to have certain skills that I don't have, then yeah, it would make more sense and it would be more legal. But other than that, no. Now these three are very important. So we have the Wagner Act of 1935, which was the first part of federal legislation that was really, really major in ensuring that it was just encouraged to have labor unions. So on top of that, it also provided a safe space for bargains to be made between employers and unions peacefully. You didn't want the violence, so that's what they were there for. They, hey, we want a raise. Hey, no. But instead of it ensuing violence, you have this open space where you can be like, hey, we want a raise. Yeah, no. They'd be like, well, how about we meet each other in the middle or something of that nature, Now we have the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947. This act was actually created after the Wagner Act. The Wagner Act in order to dial back on the power that unions were able to accumulate over time within that 12-year span, and to make sure that they aren't being unjust, unfair, things of that nature. This is also called the Labor Management Relations Act. And the last one is the Landrum-Griffin Act of 1959. So for this last act, federal legislation mainly controls the internal labor union operation, so unions have to provide financial disclosures. And if a union officer were to abuse the money that they were given, they would be penalized for that. You cannot spend $50 on even a candy bar that is union money. You will get in trouble for that. And it also protects employees from unions that they are part of. So unions have gotten so big, there has to be some sort of protection from inside too. These last three acts are the main acts that actually have control over labor management and legislation. So the end is in sight, everyone. Hold on, I promise. As I said towards the beginning, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can use to protect yourself. And these laws provide a legal foothold to grab onto if you ever find yourself in any of these situations that fall under these laws. How to apply them? Once again, you have to know what they are before you can apply them. And by applying them, it just means, I'm going to give an example. If you were to try to get a new job and your employer were to say, hey, we don't hire people who look like you, right? That would fall under an act, and you can use that act to make sure that there's pushback for this, to make sure that these employers cannot just get whatever they want just because they don't like how someone looks, how someone is, just how someone exists. So yeah. Now, to end off this podcast, I'm going to answer two questions that I saw that kind of resonated with me a little bit, that I was like, wow, I should answer. So yeah. But this first one is by Josiah, where he said, hey, I just graduated from college and was accepted into my current job through an internship that I acquired in my sophomore year. Everything was going perfectly at first, but then some strange things started to happen. Almost every day, one of my coworkers, who had been working here for over 20 years, would approach me and say inappropriate jokes about our female coworkers. I'm extremely uncomfortable, but I just don't know I don't know what to do. I don't know if he can truly get in trouble since he has been here for so long. What should I do? First and foremost, congratulations on the new job. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with something like this at your job. But yes, to answer your question, there are quite a few legal acts that he is going against. I'm just going to name one in particular for this case. So when you talk to your boss or manager, mention that his behavior goes against the Civil Rights Act Title VII, specifically under the sexual harassment portion. And make sure to look into your specific state laws because it might differ slightly. So I can't promise anything, but just make sure to look into that. So yeah. This one is from Selena, So I graduated from uni around 3 years ago and worked at a company for about 2 years until I got pregnant with my first child and left to go on maternity leave about a month before having my child. My boss assured me that I would still have my position once I came back since maternity leave is in our contracts. All of a sudden, almost as soon as I had my child, they decided to let me go. They claimed it was so I would have more time with my child and that they don't think my work will be up to par from before when I wasn't a mother. What on earth do I do? Well, this is quite the legal conundrum that they have dug themselves a hole into. So I'm sorry you have to go through that. And under legal ground, you can file for a lawsuit underneath the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978. Under this act, they cannot discriminate against you based off of you being pregnant, going through childbirth, or anything medically related to your pregnancy. Try speaking to them again and bring this act up. If they don't listen, it's time to speak to a legal advisor, and if you're able to, maybe a lawsuit. Now, that's all for today's questions. I'll answer any more in my inbox. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Stay knowledgeable, stay empowered. Bye-bye.